fact that when I die, probably they will say goodnight, John Boy, is something that I just won't have to worry about when that day comes, will I?
The chemistry we had as a group created that kind of intangible magic that just... there was a charm to the show.
If you had to grow up on a show, I would pick the Waltons hands down every time.
We just clicked immediately. It was really remarkable. It was like we'd known each other all our lives.
There is no doubt about it. We are a real family with all of its dysfunction and joy and humor and kooky stories.
Hey, the Liberty came in, everybody! It's here! Hey, Ben, come here!
30 years ago, America gave birth to a TV dynasty whose decency, virtue and fresh-cheeked fellowship captivated a cynical world.
The Liberty's here, Ben.
Meet the Waltons, 7 kids, their mom, dad and grandparents, living a God-fearing good life on the side of Waltons Mountain.
It sure looks swell, Ben.
Our mountain in winter is something to see. At times it is just like a person to me. Giant and white, all covered with snow, it changes each day as the heavy winds blow.
Somebody in TV Guide did write, the Waltons was the program we all tuned into to feel bad about our childhoods. You know, and it's true, you know. People would turn it on and go, oh my God, I can't believe what a horrible childhood I had. Or they would turn it on and go, this couldn't possibly exist. Nobody's like this.
The Waltons first ambled cheerily through a blizzard and into our lives in the winter of 1971 with a Christmas TV special, The Homecoming.
When will it really be Christmas, John Boy?
Tonight at midnight when Grandpa rings the church bell.
Grandpa says at midnight on Christmas Eve, cows get down on their knees and pray. You believe that, John Boy?
Wouldn't that be a wonder?
I'm going to find out. Going to come up here tonight and keep watch. I'm coming with you, Mary Ellen. Me too. Me 3.
Yeah, now, you better ask your mama before you go prowling around the place at midnight. How'd you like to bump into Santa Claus?
America's heart had never been so relentlessly warmed as by this septet of wholesome country kids. They didn't know it, but once the series was launched in the autumn of 1972, John Boy, Jim Bob, Elizabeth, Mary Ellen, Ben, Jason and Erin were destined to grow up together.
My dad always described it as buying your first ticket to the Irish sweepstakes and winning, because the Homecoming was my very, very first audition. And then from that came, 10 years later, I'm still doing this television series. So it was a wild ride.
By the time we finished filming The Homecoming, I was very attached to these people. So I was really excited to be able to do the series because it meant that we were all going to be together again.
John Boy, how about you send a prayer?
Okay. The family that prays together stays together, and the Waltons did for 9 years, over 200 episodes and several thousand portions of victuals.
What's really magical about the show are those characters and those people in that time, in that family, in that house, relating to each other. And the Waltons came along during the Vietnam War. And in America, it was a very tough time. There was a lot of discord. So I think one of the reasons the show is so successful, and still is because it brought a sense of unity.
The perfect balm for a troubled nation, the Waltons' weekly helpings of truth, justice and mom's apple pie became America's staple diet.
We are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
People forget about the Waltons. There was nothing else like it on the air. It was the age of, super cops, super lawyers, wonderful doctors. And this was a show about a poor, rural, large family growing up in the American Depression. This show went against type. It's become an iconic thing. But there were no shows out there about the lives of poor people. Nobody wanted to be, think about people who were darning their socks.
But darn it, people did, and the show's homespun philosophy struck a chord with the American people.
When I was growing up during the Depression, I lived with my red-headed brothers and sisters, my parents and grandparents, at the foot of a mountain which had been in our family for generations.
That resonant voice heard in every episode belonged to Earl Hamner, creator of the Waltons. He was the real John Boy, and the show grew out of memories of his own childhood in this house in Virginia.
We had incredibly lovely reviews, but in each review they said, "This is too nice, it won't last." One said, "This show is so beautiful it has to die." But we didn't.
The show's foundations, in fact, went deeper than just Earl Hamner's childhood. It drew also upon the real personalities of its 7 young actors. Eric Scott played Ben. He was 13 years old when the series started.
Because there was so many kids, and there was just really so many characters. This was the first time there was, I think, 11 regular cast members that they were putting onto a series. I don't think that the producers had as much opportunity to develop the characters with the kids as well as they could have. So I think they took some of our strengths on our real life and they started putting that on the script, and it showed.
During the graduation ceremony, when we march in, I don't want you all to start laughing and giggling. I mean, it's not going to bother me, but it'll probably hurt Miss Hunter's feelings, all right? Okay.
I'll try not to.
Try hard.
But you look so funny. Okay.
I was very brash at 21. I mean, I was very full of myself. Very self-absorbed and crusading young actor. It must have been just, if you think John Boy was hard to take, Richard Thomas must have been very, very hard to take. A lot of his more infuriating characteristics would be what I would relate to me. I want John Boy to have sex, or I don't know, whatever it was John Boy needed to have. And, there'd be, well, not yet, it's not time, or this, they wanted to move the show in certain ways, we wanted to move it in certain ways, and we always worked it out.
Just wait till GW sees this.
There was a lot of similarities at that point in time between me personally and the character, because I was a real tomboy growing up. Where that sort of divided a bit was that Mary Ellen wasn't afraid of getting into trouble or anything like that, and I was always kind of like, I didn't really want to be getting in trouble, at least, or I didn't want to be caught getting in trouble.
Youngest of the clan was Elizabeth, played by 6-year-old Cammie Kotler.
As far as awareness of what was coming over on the screen, most of it was totally lost on me. And it never occurred to me that this was like a big elaborate production with people who were, spending money, and I needed to help it to go along, because that never even crossed my mind. It was just we were playing pretend, and the faster you got it right, the happier everybody was.
There was a very special relationship between John Boy and Elizabeth. First of all, Cammie was the most beautiful child. She was exquisite. But there's something wonderful about the oldest and the youngest.
We had really sweet scenes together. The one that I really remember is one where I guess he's putting Elizabeth to bed, and I had my braids in, and he undoes my braids and he recites a poem to me. And I remember that. I remember how nice it felt to have someone undo my braids. And I just remember how beautifully he said the poem, and just being kind of mesmerized.
Amarantha sweet and fair, ah, braid no more that shining hair. As my curious hand or eye hovering round thee, let it fly.
For 10-year-old David Harper, playing Jim Bob was not so much a job as a dream ticket to his own personal amusement park.
The childhood on the Waltons was great because having a movie studio as a playground is like the ultimate fantasy. Me and Cammie used to play Bonnie and Clyde. We would sit in the old sheriff's car, which had the old running boards and the covered fenders. So when we weren't doing anything, we would get in there and be in our own little world. It was a lot of fun for the two of us. Especially when we go off and play Bonnie and Clyde and come back and do our scene, and it's like, is it over yet? We got a bank to go rob.
At the beginning, it was David and me together all the time, and we played hard because we were encouraged to play hard. They wanted us to be grubby. They wanted us to have worn-in clothes, So the wardrobe people and the makeup people never said, "Oh no, dear, let's not mess up." It was like, go off.
On the set, we would just joke around constantly. And even as the cameras were rolling, up until they would say action, we were goofing around and telling jokes, and then we'd go right into the scene. So it had that energy flow all the time.
When somebody swallow some giggle water?
We were always sending ourselves up, sending up the Waltons, making jokes about it. We had to.
We used to have nicknames for all of ourselves. So I think Ben was Bent, Mary Ellen was Harry Mellon. I think mine was Hand Job or something really risque like that.
We were really bad. But we had to be. We were being the nicest family in America.
Roads are taking them home. No, not Virginia, but to the Californian mountains of Frazier National Park. Away from the Los Angeles studios, happy childhood hours were spent filming in these hills. And 30 years on, it's a sentimental journey back to Waltons Mountain.
Oh, look at the barn. Oh, it looks great.
I remember this barn. So you guys used this barn for the fawn, right?
Oh, is this where you stole the cat?
The cat.
Yeah. So like, the actor's on the other side of the fence, and we've been, selling him the cat.
Yeah, isn't it great though?
It's
all fresh now, but just the shape.
Hi, Bullet. Hi. What's your present? Kinda big. We'll grow into it.
Hello.
How you doing?
We're great.
Remember us?
Well, the two that I do remember is her and him.
They stole the cat.
Yeah, good to see you.
I'm Mary.
How you doing?
I'm Eric.
Very well.
Eric, I remember you too. I think you was here one time.
Yeah.
You were here too.
Yep. Sure.
And I know you was. Yeah, because you used to swing on the gate. Yeah. You and Grandpa used to swing on the gate.
Wow, you have a good memory.
So I said, hey, let me do this.
When we get together, there's a lot of energy and a synergy between us because no one could know what we all went through working together. I was with all of them more than I was with my own family. I only got to know my own brothers and sisters a lot better after the show ended.
Though there was rarely a cross word, Shea-Walton, for the Walton sisterhood, differences of age and disputes about beauty could prove as difficult off-screen as on.
When I grow up, I'm going to marry a rich man and have lots of babies. I'm not going to have any babies. What are you going to have, Elizabeth? Puppies.
I was really a lot younger than everyone, and I got everything the youngest get. I got spoiled and carried around and made a pet and, sitting in everyone's lap and being the cutest. And I got teased and excluded, all of it.
I guess as Judy was the oldest and she was the tomboy, which made her smart, and then Cammie was the youngest, so that made her cute. So they had to give me some title. So people would come to me and say, you're the pretty one. Like it was a secret and it was a covert, negative, bad thing. And don't tell anybody. And don't tell anyone I said this to you, but I think that you're the pretty one.
Mary was beautiful. I also admired her because she was older and stuff, but she was also officially beautiful. So there was a lot of that. Yeah, sure, I was jealous of Mary. She was really pretty. I was just some kid,
Aaron, you look like a banny chicken strutting around.
Most of the comments that I got on the show were always about being, like a good solid farm girl and stuff, which I absolutely hated. I always wanted to be the pretty one, and Mary's character was always the pretty one, and I was always sort of the tomboy, which was fine because I really was. But, as a teenager, that was kind of tough.
Oh, I don't care. If a person has just one nice thing of her own to wear, I don't believe it's wrong to take pleasure in it.
I kissed and cried a lot. That's what Aaron did on the show. I kissed and cried a lot and ran up the stairs and slammed doors. That seemed to be what I did the most. That's part of that pretty thing. You have to be dumped in love.
As the Waltons pin-up, Mary scored dates with teeny bopper Leif Garrett, Happy Days star Scott Baio, and even turned her back on a young George Clooney. But she preferred to keep her real-life loves well apart from her TV family.
My first love, I never even brought to meet anybody for a long time, because it's a tough family. It's a tough gig, boy, coming in.
Sure is pretty up here. Wasn't that a good idea, your Miles, to have this picnic?
That'd be nice to be
3 decades on, and the tablecloth and Scotch eggs are laid out again as the Walton kids get back on familiar ground.
That first summer before the show premiered, we were wondering what the theme song was going to be. So I think it was probably Richard's idea. He said, it'll be dun 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 Waltons.
Brothers and sisters, they may have been on screen, but didn't they ever venture behind Pa's woodshed for just a little bit of, well, hanky-panky?
We were either kids or adolescents going through that difficult time, you know, hormones raging. So I know there was a time when I had a kind of a crush on Judy, and apparently she did too on me, but we didn't know it. So, you know, you kind of go, later you go, oh, if I'd only known.
At one point I had a little crush on Eric, at one point I had a little crush on John, and I had a little crush on Richard, but David was way too young, you know.
Was there kissing going? Oh, sure. I think that all of us were doing a little kissing along the way.
A little bit of kissing. Not, you know, that's about it.
But if you had $100,000 just for yourself, let's say you couldn't spend it on anybody else or you'd lose it, what would you do with it?
Oh, I wouldn't know where to begin.
Where to begin where?
We're just playing little games to what we'd do if we suddenly got rich.
I'd buy candy.
Everyone told us if you did 100 episodes, you were set for life. Well, here it is, we were doing over 200 shows. We did, I think, over 225 shows. So I thought I had my entire life set up for 2 times.
It wasn't like it is now. I mean, now kids do shows and they never have to work again.
Well, they said that to us, too.
People said that to us.
You know, they said that after the first 100 shows...
No, they said you're never going to work again.
No, all along I thought it was. I didn't have to. Oh, no, okay. You know, the house we grew up in, it cost us $15,000, and I was doing that every week. Pretty amazing, the numbers and stuff that we were seeing. I was driving my Alfa Romeo convertible. I had the clothes. I remember flying to Hawaii for weekends. So life was good. Had a good time.
You're earning money and you're 6, 7, 8. And what do? Buy extra bubble gum? There's nothing to spend it on until you turn. If your parents aren't spending it, and that's the big if. I was lucky because my mom's dad was an accountant, and she did a beautiful job managing my money. So I was very, very lucky.
For me, because I was older, I basically started supporting my family from the time I started working, because my mother then wasn't working because she was taking me to work, and my father was sort of out of the picture, and he decided since I was working he shouldn't have to pay child support. So so it was pretty much, so I started basically supporting the family. So I wasn't necessarily in a position to be tucking it all away neatly.
Daddy's in the sawmill cutting railroad ties. Mama's in the kitchen baking apple pies. Grandpa and the children had their chores to do, while Grandma...
The thoughts of the now grown-up Walton kids turn to picnics past and the Walton grown-ups, Ma, Pa and the grandparents. Soft-hearted but occasionally sharp-tongued Grandma Walton was played by Ellen Corby, a real-life matriarch to her brood of young actors.
We always called Ellen Grandma. She was Grandma, and we were the only grandchildren that she ever had.
By then, I didn't have any grandparents, so we just gravitated towards each other. And she was very, very supportive of my music and encouraged me to do that. Not much like her character. Much more fun, much more spiritual and worldly. She traveled all over the world. She went to India. She studied meditation with the Maharishi, and truly an amazing woman.
Praise the Lord and pass the chicken fricassee. Oh, that's good.
You put me down, you old fool.
Something of a dark horse in the Waltons fold, veteran actor Will Geer played Grandpa. As a left-wing activist, he'd been blacklisted and prevented from working during the McCarthy era of the 1950s. Liberal, progressive, openly bisexual, he was also an active campaigner for gay rights.
Will was the world's oldest hippie. He was like this, 70-year-old flower child. He loved everybody, truly loved mankind and womankind.
Will had a lust for life that was absolutely contagious. He was very committed politically, very strong about tolerance and about his liberalism was very much a cause for him. And he had such gusto for the work.
Rock solid and holding the reins of the family were Ma and Pa, whose love not even 7 bouts of colic and nappy could dent. Olivia Walton was played by actress Michael Leonard, and with Ralph Waite playing John Sr., to the kids they were much more than just TV parents.
Ralph is the only dad I have. And my dad died when I was 16. So I always tell Ralph that, I said, you're the only dad I have left. When I was doing the wedding show, and I was wearing my own mother's real wedding dress, and I was bawling because he was my dad, and I was wearing my own real mother's wedding dress where she married my real father, and it was just too strange.
Come on, now, it's a happy day.
It was an amazing place to grow up. We had the most amazing talent around us. Michael always watched out for us to make sure that, we weren't around anything that was too naughty. And they would try and get people to watch their language around us. They were really very protective.
Those tadpoles are taking away my appetite.
Mine. I don't see why we have to have those nasty things at the table. Sit down, Elizabeth. Put those things away, Mary Ellen, till we finish eating.
What on earth you intend doing with all them tadpoles?
Start a bullfrog farm and get rich like Elwood P. Fairweather.
Who's Elwood P. Fairweather?
I read about him in Liberty magazine. He made about $600 million selling bullfrog's legs to restaurants.
I'm just waiting for the time to come when all sorrow will be done. Then I'm going home to heaven above.
With the Waltons grown up and gone, that house has stood empty and forlorn on a Los Angeles film lot until now. Today, the old porch is ringing once again with the laughter of the Walton clan.
No, actually, this looks
does look pretty good.
You see, that's what tourism will do for you.
The tree has finally grown in. It was a pepper tree before, but now it became a pine.
And it was also over there.
Really tall. It looks like an abandoned house. Gee, I wonder why.
I think we abandoned it a while back.
That's
the
supposed to
middle
be in the middle.
Like that bit.
No, it's not.
It off to the right.
Really?
It was offset, but it wasn't.
Yeah. It's smaller too, isn't it?
No.
It's just always so smaller when you go home.
I didn't realize until I started working on other shows that other cast members on other TV shows didn't like each other. And I thought, well, why isn't everybody going to lunch together? How odd. Because we all went to lunch together every day. We were together all the time. And we all went to lunch. And if you wanted to go to lunch without somebody, it was a big drama. Like, no, well, you can't. We all have lunch together.
Weren't there more steps?
Yes, there were more steps.
there were more
steps. It wasn't his wife. And
all the marigolds.
Yeah, we had the
And there was a rare tree there.
The kids on the show were the kids. And people still to this day call us the kids.
We had a yard.
Didn't
we have a yard?
Sycamore tree.
The yard was
It was a...
And the garden was over there.
You see them watching it.
Jim Bob got the house?
Forever, forever.
Even within the closest families, a time comes for the young to make their own way in the world. And so it was with the Waltons. At the end of the 5th series, John Boy left home.
I could no more stay on that show another year than he could have stayed in that attic another year, writing in his journal. I had to leave home. I had to get out and, find out what I could do after this. Just like him. I was in the same boat he was in. I had to leave home.
Well, don't forget your way home, son.
I never will.
I was very moved because in that episode I integrated all the elements of my feelings when I left home for the last time. And it was the narration after that I found wonderful.
I did leave Waltons Mountain to live and work in New York City. I wrote more novels and raised a family of my own. In memory, I stand before that small white house, and I can still hear those sweet voices.
John Boy walks out in the yard. He hears the children all saying good night to each other, and he knows that this is the last time that he will be a part of that.
Night, Daddy. Night, John Boy.
Good night, everybody. I love you. It's very hard. Very, very, very painful. And it's very easy for me to remember that feeling now. Sometimes I've kept the show a little bit at arm's length because I think of how deep a well of feeling it is for me. Deep down inside, I knew that if I spent 5 years on a series, it was going to take 10 years to balance the scale. So that coming out of the Waltons, being successful, being a star, being hired constantly, but knowing that there were certain areas that were off limits, certain kinds of parts that I was not going to be thought of, sexy young guys, torrid love scenes with fabulous, the brass ring. No, Richard Thomas, please, he played their brother, but, I know there are jobs that I lost after I left the Waltons because everybody thought I was just, Mr. Nice and Mr. Sweet and, not really capable of, playing a role with much edge to it, which is, a lot of horseshit.
Soon after John Boy's departure for New York, the Waltons suffered another loss. Grandpa, actor Will Geer, died in the summer break between filming.
We've had us some good times, haven't we, Esther?
In the next episode, the family said goodbye to Grandpa, high up on Waltons Mountain.
We came up here and did a graveside scene, and probably didn't really hit us till even months after that. It's very poignant, though. Great man.
A poignancy heightened by Ellen Corby's courageous return to the role of Grandma, having suffered a stroke the previous year.
Old man, you live in all of us.
I think it was a tough day for everyone. And it is one of the most memorable moments for cast, crew, and fans. Everybody remembers that show because we all said goodbye to him in our own way.
And then as time went on, when he wasn't there, then you really started to feel it. When we do dinner scenes and have the empty chair, that's when it would really hit you.
Just because there's only 4 of us doesn't mean we can't talk.
It wasn't the same without them, and it wasn't the same for us either. And then when we were kind of all grown up and everybody was going every which way, I think it was harder for an audience to focus on what was going on. It's like, where is everybody? Where are they going?
Grandma, life is rotten for females. Nothing but dishes and sweeping and ironing. That's it for females.
People would go through periods of dissatisfaction when they would feel that their character wasn't being given enough to do. The women, had these tasks they were always doing. It was like, Ellen was like, if I wipe my hands on my apron one more time, I'm gonna go crazy.
Oh, good Lord. Mary Ellen, you were supposed to mop this floor.
I'll do it right now, Mama.
I did it.
Well, I'm sorry, I just forgot.
That's the 3rd time this week.
Michael was just getting dissatisfied from what she said with the lack of challenge in the role after so many years, that she felt that it was exactly, what I started running into after they sort of had me married and have a kid. It was like hanging around the house waiting for some man to make me important, That's kind of, I know, she'd joke about, more coffee, John? Time to go to bed, kids. Then all of a sudden, after Michael left, there I was going, more coffee, Daddy? Okay, kids, time to go to bed. I'm like, oh my God, I've turned into everything that Michael said she hated, and I didn't like it any better.
After nearly 10 years and 210 episodes, the Waltons said their goodnights, let the coffee go cold, and left that old house for good in June 1981. Trouble was, nobody told the kids.
I heard the show got canceled. It was in the newspaper. No one called us. The network didn't let us know. It was a pretty horrible feeling.
You know, when you work as a kid, you don't really have time for childhood or playtime, and having worked from the age of 8, I was just ready to, have my own time. Freedom at last. It was, it was one of those, like when you get out of school, summer vacation type feelings.
The show was done when I was about 22, 23 years old, and I took about a year, and I had to do some soul searching of what I wanted to do. And it was a tough time. I had to mourn the loss of the show. That was the place where I found a place to go every day. There was friends every day. There was people that were telling me what a wonderful job I did every day. There was a lot of money coming in every day. And life wasn't like that anymore. And so I had to sit at home, and I ate a lot, and I watched a lot of TV. And when I knew the lines better than Haas on Bonanza, I thought it was time to go out and get work.
Eric Scott began working as a courier in Los Angeles, delivering packages. By a bittersweet irony, one day he found himself in the reception of the company he'd once made millions for, the company that made the Waltons.
And I walk in and I see my picture with all the Waltons right there in the lobby, and it was an adjustment time. I had to realize that was not the source of where I was going to be anymore. So it was very humbling, to say the least. And I just went and I delivered the package and took a few minutes, and I said, okay, I need to work on this a little bit longer. That was a tough day.
You'll learn to love it, Grandma. All you do is put in a nickel and you can hear your favorite song.
I was actually working in a record store, and when I discovered used albums, then I really went haywire. I would actually get paid and spend more than my check was, buying stuff that I liked. But that was great. That's like, if you like music, that's like being a kid in a candy shop. So, yeah, you piss a lot of your money away, but,
Having started the show at the age of 6, Cammy Cotler was only 16 at its end, which brought with it a different set of problems.
Dating becomes a really awkward thing, because not only because you haven't really had that much access to boys or to dating, but because for some boys who you go out with, they're not just dating you, they're also dating Elizabeth Walton. And do you really want to date Elizabeth Walton? Do you want to date a guy who wants to date Elizabeth Walton? It gets complicated. Do you know?
I hoped that when the show ended that I was going to do more acting and a lot more music, and it didn't quite work out that way. And I do think that we were typecast.
They were sort of like, go away, you're not marketable in film and television right now because you're too recognizable and you're too sort of typecast at the moment. So, I just was kind of like, go away,
We all felt the need to kind of separate out. And I think at the time we saw each other less for a while. And I think we all made attempts to distance ourselves and change our images, and be known for what we were.
The Walton kids said goodbye to their former selves in different ways. For Judy Norton, formerly Mary Ellen, a photo spread for a men's magazine was her way of shedding, literally, those hated dungarees.
Had I known it would never go away, that everybody who ever did an interview with me would bring it up again, I probably would have said, it's not worth the trouble. I mean, it wasn't that big a deal to me at the time to do. I don't know. Mary Ellen's the type of character that just might have done something like that in a rebellious moment. So maybe it's not that far off. Well, I imagine that, at some point, when I'm old and sagging and decrepit, I might look back and go, hey, once upon a time.
Like Judy Norton, Mary McDonough decided to keep on acting, but the pressure of competing for those glamorous roles made her resort to a dramatic image change.
I wanted to keep working as an actress in my chosen field. And when it was suggested to me that I was losing a lot of parts because they went Drop Dead Gorgeous and Bombshell, I started to feel funny about that. And it was suggested that I might want to have bigger boobs because people who had bigger boobs were getting the parts. So at the time I was young and foolish, and the information that's out and available to women now wasn't available to me. And it was really nerve-wracking, but I decided to have silicone gel breast implants. And instead of helping my career, it actually made me very sick. I got very, very sick. Within 24 hours, I broke out in a rash and then went 10 years of declining health until I had them removed. And I now have been diagnosed with lupus. And I feel the chemicals in my system triggered the lupus response.
Lupus is a disease of the immune system that can prove fatal. Now president of the Lupus LA Foundation, Mary calls on some old friends, Richard Thomas included, to help out with her celebrity-packed fundraising party.
About the reason why you are here.
Well, Richard is here.
I'm here for her.
In loving support of me.
Top of the guest list, Sylvester Stallone, Ryan O'Neal, and Happy Days dad, Tom Bosley. But it's not just canapes and air kissing. They're all here to raise the profile and swell the coffers of Mary's campaign.
I think my life is so much more interesting than I ever thought it would be. I never thought I would lobby Congress. I never thought that I would be giving speeches, and I never thought that I would have a disease and that I would be the president of a group that raises money to try and find a cure for it. You being here helps support raising awareness and funds for lupus research. When you're written off as the pretty one, people don't really hold you to a high standard. And I didn't hold myself to a high standard. I never thought I would be as strong and that I could make a difference, because I just thought, oh, I'm just an actress. But I'm not. I'm so much more than that.
Mary's activism is fueled by the fear that her illness may have affected the health of her daughter, Sydney, born after Mary's own health began to deteriorate. Now 9 years old, Sydney's only a year younger than her mother was when she first played Erin Walton.
I think I look at the pictures and I think, who is that girl? Who was that little girl? And that little girl went through so much to grow up to be the woman that I am now. And it makes me wistful, and it kind of makes me sad. Because in looking at that little girl and looking at my own little girl, I hope she doesn't go through the same things that I did.
Every year, the tiny Virginian town of Schuyler suffers an invasion as the fans come flocking to the International Waltons Convention. A site of pilgrimage for thousands of devotees, today is particularly special. The Waltons are coming home.
It's great to see all of you again. It's been about 7 years since I've been out here to the museum, and it's great to see so many of you here.
It's pretty overwhelming that the show is still on, that people are still watching it, that they love it as much as they do.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming and supporting the museum and being here. Most of us had not ever been to Virginia until we went back for the reunion. And they were expecting 1,000 people to show up, maximum, in this tiny, tiny town. And over 6,000 people showed up, and they had to turn thousands of people away.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
And Judy and I looked at each other at the opening of the museum with thousands of people around us, and we looked at each other and went, can you believe this? Who are these people?
Well, I'm Joy.
I'm Lawrence.
And her name is Tandy. And we've lived in Malvern a long time. We've watched the Walton series through at least twice, and it takes about 3 years to run, a week at a time.
Look how cute I was!
When we booked to come, we just thought it would be an ordinary day. And then our daughter heard that it was going to be a reunion, and I think it's wonderful.
So how old were you when you started
Well, I
watching?
must be about 9 years old at the time. You're showing my age now. Yeah.
I just turned 40, so you can tell me, Robin.
It won 10 Emmys in its first year and has been seen by a likely billion viewers worldwide. But this is where the hardcore Waltonite comes into their own, crossing continents to pay homage to their icons.
We love you all.
Oh, thank you very much.
You all.
And we look much younger in person, right? Ah! I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you really are. Look
Oh my God! I never looked like that.
We've always felt they were a proper family. I always say it's the sanest thing they put on television for a long, long time.
It still surprises me.
Sort of surreal.
Yeah, to see that here it is 30 years later. And, you know, it obviously touched people's lives.
Well, everyone has
Amazing.
a story about it. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like everyone has their own story, and everyone has their favorite character. I mean, after
Yeah.
all this time, it's like they still remember, and they know so much more about the show than we do.
Well, the people that I love, and there's one in every group, where, you know, some couple in their 60s, you know, around 60, will come and say, "I grew up with you." I'm thinking, no, you didn't.
But one Walton isn't there today. Success and fame never sat easily on David Harper's young shoulders.
The way I look at it was, I'm just Joe Friday doing a job, and, you know, they kind of treat you like you're different or special, and, you know, you really kind of feel like, well, I don't recall anything that I did to deserve that. You know, it kind of puts you off balance a little bit. At least for me personally, it does. I think it made me socially introverted in a lot of ways. I didn't like being recognized, and so I think I was very private, whereas normally I might not have been. So that's a possible regret right there.
I did have some tough times. I had some very challenging times, I should say. I got married when I was 30 years old, and right after the birth of my first daughter, my wife died. She was diagnosed with leukemia, and at that point we were getting ready for the chemotherapy, and unfortunately Thursday morning they came to me and they said that she won't make the day, that we were going to lose her. So she died at 9:30 on Thursday morning, less than 2 days after Ashley was born. I will never forget the feeling of sitting there with Ashley, looking at this little baby. I mean, here it is, I'm overwhelmed with the thought of having a little baby, and her mom just dying in the next, literally, you know, a couple floors down the same day, and thinking, oh my God, I've not prepared for this. I mean, how could you? I watched Ashley grow older, and then I said, you know, it's time to find someone to be a mommy for her. And I got lucky. I got very, very lucky.
You're doing great right now.
Now I have little Emma, my sweet little Emma. And it's so nice to be sharing it with someone this time. I put up signs here, welcome home, with flowers and balloons, and it was so nice to be able to bring the two of them home. And having my new family, and like I told Ashley, I said, look, we doubled the size of our family in 2 years. Pretty good, huh? She goes, yeah, Daddy.
Come on, Ashley, it's time to go.
Judy Norton's now living in Canada, still acting as well as teaching film and drama, but her main supporting role these days is being a mother to her son, 7-year-old Devin.
Yeah, I always said I didn't want to be a single parent, and here I am being a single parent. No, I am definitely not living like the Walton life, and I don't know how possible that is in this day and age. I mean, I think that the things that you can still do have more to do with what the show represented, family values, and I don't think that you have to have a big family living in, you know, on a mountain to be able to have that as a core part of your family.
When the Waltons ended, Cammie Kotler went to college and became a high school teacher. Whilst her two young children are unaware of Mom's mountain childhood, her pupils do question her about the fictional family she left behind.
They do
eventually hear, like through the grapevine, Miss Cotler was on television. Miss Cotler was on the Waltons. And typically the thing that holds them the longest is, who have you met? Like, well, I did meet Brad Pitt once. And that's exciting. But other than that, they really... I always say the culture of teacher is so powerful that it doesn't matter who you are. You're their teacher. And Madonna could become a high school teacher, and within a week she would be officially boring.
Life imitating art, John Walmsley's made a career in music, just like Jason Walton. He has a daughter, Brighton, and his wife, Lisa, played his fiancée in the series. Keeping it in the family, their real-life wedding was conducted by Pa Walton himself.
We were married by Ralph Waite, who is also a minister in real life. And it was just that much more meaningful having somebody that we knew and loved and my TV dad marrying us.
Part-time Presbyterian minister Ralph Waite, now 72, has enjoyed a distinguished acting career. Having beaten a drink problem, he sits on the board of a Californian alcohol recovery centre and has also run for Congress. In true Walton tradition, Richard Thomas has gone on to father 7 children. An amazingly youthful 50, he's never left the film business.
If I had to do something else besides acting, I'd be besides acting and breeding, I'd be in big trouble, I've starred in close to 40 television movies, which is really amazing.
Mary McDonough has moved behind the camera to direct her first short feature film. In a central role, she cast her Walton mama, film and stage actress Michael Learned. Ben, Eric Scott, liked being a delivery boy so much that he bought the company and now owns a successful courier business in LA. And of them all, Jim Bob's the wandering Walton. Having drifted through a variety of jobs, David Harper, 40 and single, is the one yet to play happy Walton families.
I'm kind of proud to be the black sheep. Yeah, well, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I mean, I'm a part of them, but I'm also kind of a loner to a degree.
After time goes by, you sort of soften, you think, well, those were good days, and we did have fun, and it was a good show, and people do still like it, and you realize that it's never going away. People are still going to talk about it, that to some people you're still going to be Jason, and you're still going to be Mary Ellen, as long as you live, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Good night, John.
Good night, Judy. Good night, Cammie.
If you had to grow up on a show, I would pick the Waltons hands down every time. It is a show of class and dignity and honor. And I feel lucky, just lucky, that it happened to be me.
Good night, Mary.
Good night, Eric. Good night, David.
It would only truly be an albatross if it had been a disaster. Those would be the crosses that would be very hard to bear. The fact that when I die, probably they will say, "Good night, John Boy," is something that I just won't have to worry about when that day comes, will I?
Good night, Richard.
Good night, everybody.